Welcome back into episode 53. So, as before, if you're enjoying this journey, watching me pull my 9 to 8 apart, please remember to click the subscribe button. There's a link at the bottom of the video somewhere, and also I'll put a link in the description. Really helps me grow the channel, keeps me motivated, everything ticks along. So episode 53 is going to be all about getting the tank back on the car. In the last 2 videos you saw me rebuild the sender unit. We've gone over the tank and sorted that out. And now it's the cradle turn. So a little while ago, probably about 9 months ago, I bought a new cradle, or a used cradle, and as it turns out, now I look at it, it's the wrong one. It's from a later car, probably maybe just a 928S or maybe an S2. It's the one with the pump and the filter connected together on the cradle. Mine is an early car, mine's a 1979 4.5 that only has the pump attached to the cradle. So I need to work out how to get it all to fit together, probably modifying the cradle on the way. But that's the focus of today, so let's just dive on in, see how we get on. As ever, thanks for watching. Click the subscribe, the like button, leave me comments, and let's just get in and see how I get on. Right, the next part of getting the fuel tank sorted, and while I'm waiting for some of the sealant to come so I can put the fuel filler fitting back into the tank, is the cradle. So what I've done here is just fit the cradle in underneath the car. You can see I'm sort of laying underneath it. It's needed a bit of stretching and pulling around. This, as it transpires, this is the cradle off an S, which is slightly different, and what I'm hoping is that the fuel tank is roughly the same, or thereabouts. And the cradle is just slightly different in this sort of area where the pump and the fuel filter go. On the non-S, so just the standard car, which mine is, there's only the pump there. So what I'm hoping is either it will just fit, or I can modify this cradle to fit. But at the moment, that's just sort of held up with the bolts, so I can check that the bolts all align and everything's good there. While I'm under here, so just sliding a little bit further, I've been inspecting the fuel pipes. So I think you can see in the picture there, up the back there's just a Jubilee clip on that's the return hose for the fuel. We can't have a Jubilee clip on a high pressure fuel line, so that's going to have to come off. I know coming back probably isn't under the same sort of pressure, but either way, that we can't have that. So I'm going to have to renew that. I've inspected the fuel pipes all the way back. One of them's been replaced, and it looks like, is it cuprinol or however you pronounce it, pipe has been used. I'm going to look into if that's the correct thing. If not, I need to renew that. But the original pipe actually looks pretty okay. I'm going to scrub it all down and coat it with something just to make sure, and sort of inspect it while I'm doing that. But I do think that one's alright. But the new one, I need to work out whether it's correct or not. That just rises in the wheel well, just sort of behind my finger there, with no fitting on the end. So I need to work out a proper fitting for that. I'll need to flare it basically. I want to check whether it's the same size pipe as the brake pipes, because I've got the flaring tool for that. If not, I'll need to buy another flaring tool. Right, and here's the fuel tank as if I was laying underneath the car. This obviously coming up on the driver's side. So, and the cradle sort of bent so that it fits the holes. So what I want to do is just see if it fits as it is, so I know the cradle actually works for this tank, which it kind of does, apart from it's a bit restrictive here. So I suspect the later model cars have a bigger indent here that allows this to fit. But maybe it's right. So what I think I'll do, there's a fair gap underneath there, but again that might just be where the padding goes, because I know there's quite a lot of padding that goes on this cradle. So I think what I'll do is I'll fit the tank now up underneath the car on the cradle and see whether the cradle actually does fit and hold it up. Otherwise, I'm probably going to have to modify this section to allow this part to fit lower down onto the tank. But I semi-suspect it's right as it is. But let's try that. So what we're trying to do here is I want to offer up the fuel tank I think I probably said in one of the other videos, just to make sure this cradle actually fits. At the moment, I've got no real idea if it's going to all line up. I'm not going to lift it up particularly high. I just want to just make sure it's sort of at least in the right ballpark. I don't want to damage the fuel tank either, obviously. Just very gently trying to see if it will go in there. It's about there. I have to whip the wheel back off. I put the wheel on just for security while it was up on axle stands. I think I'll have to pull the wheel off quickly and just see. I'm going to just lift it up with the jack and just sort of basically offer it up and make sure it fits. This bracket's a little bit old and rusty, so we'll be replacing that bracket, I'm sure, in due course. With the wheel off though, I can pretty much get that up there now, I think. But it's quite hard to see whether it does actually fit. I've got two of the bolts line up to the fixings. The other two seem to be a long way off. I can't tell whether it just doesn't fit. I know the cradle fits these holes, but when it's sort of pulled around the tank, does it not fit at all? Is it that I need to modify the cradle, just chopping off where the filter and pump sit? That could be one solution. I don't know, but what I'm going to do is put some extra long bolts in now, just to sort of anchor these two that line up. I'm not going to pull it up tight, just to sort of hold them there, and I'm going to play with the other side and see whether it's just a matter of me moving the cradle around to fit, or if it just, I need to modify. At least then as well, if I do need to modify, I'll be able to mark it up and see which bits I need to cut. Right, it's very clear from this angle, you can see what's wrong. This is the fuel and filter housing. It just doesn't allow the cradle to go up far enough, and it's hitting here and here. So what I think I need to do is literally remove the entire part. It doesn't look like it's not structural, but it will allow this part of the cradle to go up higher and meet up with the bolts that are just at the top there. So back on the bench, what I'm going to do with the cradle then is, this is the mounting for the filter and the fuel pump. I'm going to slice across here, remove it there, slice across here so the whole unit comes out, and then I'm going to look at where I can reattach it to, well then we'll fit the cradle back on the fuel tank, and we'll work out how we can put this on there such that it doesn't get in the way of the fitting. This is the problem with being thinking you can weld. I think I can do this, and obviously I've got a disc cutter so I can just slice it off. Let's see what sort of trouble we get into. There we go. Right. So that's out the way. I mean, it's still usable, so I'm not too concerned. So let's put that out of the way for the minute. It's quite hot, and we've got the remaining cage cradle. So now let's try it. I mean, that shouldn't be too hot to put on the tank. Let's put the tank on here, and we'll see how this fits on now. Right, so let's quickly try it on the fuel tank, which is here. That'll rest there just about. And the cradle goes this way around. Yeah, look at that. So this is actually flush against the fuel tank now, where before it was quite a long way off. If you look at where, I can't remember which way around this was now, but if that was strapped on there, I'm not sure you can see from where you are, but it's miles away. It's sort of, probably 3 or 4 inches away from being fitted, or from fitting. So we'll need to work out what we do with this. I'm not sure if we can get it on there at all, to be honest. Might not be a major problem. The other thing I could do is slice it across the middle, weld one end there, and then fit a strap for the last piece, a thin strap similar to the edge of the tank, of the cradle, sorry, just to come round and attach on there. Right, today's challenge is to fit some new sort of rubber padding that goes on all the metal of the cradle. It's just arrived, so I'm going to give it a little go. I haven't actually tried it at all yet. I've peeled off the stuff that was on the bottom here. I mean, it's not particularly technical, I'm just going to splat it on really. Luckily it's actually exactly the right length. There wasn't a great deal of choice, to be honest. This is just off Amazon. Yeah, that's not so bad. Now there's a bit of padding that goes in here. This has all been painted up. It looks pretty good really. I'm quite pleased with that. There is a little bit of corrosion here. If I just put something white underneath, you should be able to see it. A little bit here. I was going to weld it and I actually chose to leave it in the end. It's so thin that I think trying to weld this is just going to blow through. I could cut a plate in, but I figure it's probably fine. I'll just leave it as it is for the minute. And if it starts to deteriorate, I can always pull it off and weld it up. Right, so I've got the 2 fuel tanks I now have on my bench. This is my original one, and that's the one I got from Simon, along with the engine and all the other parts. I thought I'd just quickly show you the difference between the two. So this is one, I've got to check the serial number, but it's off a later car. If you look at this area here, this is where the pump and the filter would go. If you look on my earlier car, there's much less of a recess. This is, I believe, where the fuel pump would go, just one pump. So you can see between the two. So the cradle I've got would have fitted this one perfectly. Now, this is a much cleaner example. Even the filter here, I mean, it's finger tight, it's very loose, there's no corrosion on it at all. Even the filters are in pretty good condition. I won't take it out now. It is in much better condition. There's one problem with it though, and that's inside there's a kind of like a plastic arrangement, actually just sort of about here in the tank. I think it just stops the petrol sloshing around, perhaps by the filter, I'm not really sure. That's come loose, so I'm just trying to work out whether I can reattach that, and or whether I need to reattach it, or I could actually slice it up and take it out through the filler at the bottom. Not the filler, the sender unit. Or whether I should stick with my original one, which doesn't have that problem. It's in good condition apart from, I've obviously had to repair the top here, which you saw in the previous video. Now I'm pretty happy with that repair. It seems to be the agreed way of doing it on Renlist, but it'd be much easier to use one that doesn't need a repair. So that's my current debate, what to do there. Any thoughts, please let me know. They call me two fuel tank Todd now. Yeah, it's a bit of a dilemma. I'll have a little poke around and see what I can do with that bit that's come loose. Right, it's time for my executive decision. After debating, looking into it and reading up online quite a bit, I'm going to go with the new fuel tank. So although that has the detached slosh baffle, as I've now come to understand it's called, what I can do is when I put the sender unit in, I can actually put it through the hole in the slosh baffle and it'll hold it in place. So that's what I'm going to go with. It's a newer model. It's got the internal fuel filter fitting is intact, whereas this one's been repaired by me, which I'm sure is fine. I'm not worried about that, but why not have the one that isn't broken? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pressure jet clean that. I'm going to take it outside now and do that. Then we'll move across the sender unit and the new fuel filter, and that'll go back on the car shortly. Okay, to wrap up the new fuel tank then, I'm going to fit the original sender unit that I've reconditioned, and you can watch the video of that. Now, the slosh baffle, as I said before, is loose. So what I'm doing is I'm actually sliding this inside the hole of the slosh baffle. So I'm going to have a quick look, check it's in there. And that will hold it all in place. I'm not going to worry about trying to click the slosh baffle back onto the little bucket that it sits on, because I'll probably damage it. Now, So it just took a little bit of persuading, and I managed to get that to line up. And I put a little bit of grease on it, if I'm honest. Just to sort of around it, just to make sure it's squeezed in neatly, which it did in the end. So now the last thing we need to do is pop the filter in, which I cleverly put back in the box. And then that should just wind in really nicely, just looking inside. All looks very clean, luckily, and I'll just wind in there. I need to find the correct torque setting for that. But that's in there neatly. And that should be the fuel tank done. Now, of course, we've got the cradle here. Oh, let's pop the cradle back on, which fits on really neatly, of course, because it's the correct tank for this cradle. And I didn't need to cut off that the piece there with the fuel tank and the fuel pump go, but it's off and it's all sealed up now, so I'm not going to go welding that back on, although I'm tempted to get the old welder out again, but let's leave it there. So that should be the fuel tank done. What I need is to connect the breather hose across these two, which I've got one that will be good for that, and this can go back on the car. I think that's all we're going to get time for this week. Not a massive step forwards, although we have resolved the fuel tank. At least I know which one I'm going to be using. I know that it's secure, definitely won't leak and all those sorts of things. And we've got the cradle sorted as well, which is I'm quite pleased with. That although I've sliced the lump off of it, at least it's the right cradle. In the background, I've been doing a lot of work on the fueling system, and that's basically trying to source the correct fittings to match up with the fuel pump to the accumulator, then the accumulator to the filter I've already got, but then that filter out to the front of the engine bay. There's a pipe in there, but it's the wrong pipe. It's I think it's an 8mm that someone's run up to the front. It should be a 10mm, so I'm going to be swapping that out. I think I have all the bits to do that now. I need to just double check, but I'm pretty sure I've got them all. They're quite hard to source, so I've luckily found the company that do them, and more on that when I do the actual job itself. But that's going quite well, I think. I'll be hopefully putting that on maybe over this weekend, and I'll bring you a video probably late next week, I think. Anyway, thank you for watching as ever, sticking with the journey. Remember, click the subscribe button, click the like button, leave me comments, tell me what I'm doing wrong, of course, what I'm doing right and all those sorts of things, and I'll see you next week.